James Kelly. Welcome.
Thank you, sir. Had a crucible. A moment of adversity. Some had multiple. But it was that moment of adversity that gave them the pause to look internal to themselves to figure out how they want to do something different. How they want to be a different person. How they don't want to be like those around you. Joe Burton didn't want to be like his sisters and be hooked on drugs. Joe DeSena didn't want to turn into the mafia. He could have easily have done it. It was around him all over. He saw all the money being thrown around. These moments, your personal adversity, are really the three general types. I call them bizarro. Bizarro is moving to the Middle East. That's bizarro if you come from North America. How things work here is totally different. I've been fortunate enough to live in Australia, Japan, here in 5 major cities in the US, all as an adult. So for me, bizarro is like an everyday event. It doesn't really bother me. The next one is what I call the forced break. The forced break is when life gives you a nudge and pushes you into pause. Going back to school, a divorce, layoff, new job. We have to start relearning the norms of that particular culture. You know, one of my interviews was with a 2-time Australian Olympic athlete named Richard Pengelly. He was the captain of their team in 1984 and 1988, and he quit the sport to go be an Episcopalian minister. At 28 years old, he had one more to go. He was captain, and he walked away because he needed a forced break because that was his calling. That was his moment of a crucible for him. The last one is what I call the avalanche, hence the glove coming out of the snow. These are the most significant ones. Many of us have them. Many of us recognize them. Many of us aren't sure what to do with them. You know, one of the things I lost my father when I was 20. I have no grandparents left. I'm always surprised my mom's still alive at 75 because she's been smoking since 16. So, I mean, she's just a hanger-oner as best she can. But she's not healthy. So I've had my fair share of these. And what's always fascinating to me is that that impact of that day is never that day. That impact is 5, 10, 15 years down the road when you're reflecting on something in your life. And this last quote I have is from a woman named Bridget Mayer. Bridget Mayer owns her own gallery, Bridget Mayer Galleries. It's in LA and in Philadelphia. She's one of the top 50 art gallery owners in the US. And her story is second to none. Her story, I mean, I've never cried on my podcast. This is the closest I came. A tear came down my eye listening to her story as a child. She was raised in a crack house in New Jersey with 6 of her siblings up till 9 years old. And in this story, she picks up what it was like to live in that environment. I'm going to go with it's not going to work the first time.
An intense amount of physical abuse as a child. Like, I'm talking beatings where I was hospitalized and, literally left abandoned for a week or two in an apartment with no food and, literally drinking water from the toilet bowl because there were no cups and I couldn't reach the sink.
Now, let me add to this story. She was adopted with her 2 sisters, one older, one younger. The older one committed suicide, like in her 30s, 40s. The younger one was hooked on drugs, in and out off the streets. So what was it about Bridget that she went on to college, got a running scholarship, went on to open her first art gallery in her early 20s, went on to open a second art gallery in her early 30s, that she got that her 2 sisters didn't get? All the same family adopted them. Her sisters blamed their life on the circumstances they came from. She learned from the circumstances that she was born out of. And it was so powerful for her to say, yeah, I learned how to talk to just about anybody at 9 years old because I was on the street. I learned to care about people who had less fortune and less than I because I was once there. I mean, the stories that she tells about her life, and for me, I'm very vulnerable when I hear children being hurt. I think as any human being, it hurts you. And for her, she used that pain, flipped it on its head, pulled it apart, and said, how can I use this to be different than the rest of my family? She forgave her mom. She never talked to her mom again, but she forgave her mom. She never knew who her dad was. She's now married, super happy, and thriving in her world. It's amazing. And so what I've come to find out is that red ball represents the crucible. And that crucible knocks into everything else. I want to get this right. So, what is Newton's third law? The third law states that for every action in nature, there is an equal and opposite reaction. For every negative thing that happened to these people, they had an opportunity to create a positive moment in their life through compassion, integrity, relatableness, growth mindset, and becoming more self-aware. And that's what led me to this model. It's my belief that this is actually a very simple model, and it requires just a few steps. And what I found with the leaders that I interviewed is that all of them that comprised aspects of this, or a majority of this, were thriving. And they all used the Crucible as their launching point to be a better leader. And that to me was what was most impactful about the whole entire concept of writing this book. So with that, I just say start leading authentically. Be bold.